Hey everyone, this is actually going to be a very interesting video. On my old channel, I did an interview with the great artist from Oklahoma named Channel 13. And I really love this interview. It was one of the new ones I did for the revamp of what I was trying to do. And since that we're doing the fresh record, I would like to bring this video over to this channel so you guys can check out this great interview. Hope you enjoy.
Up and coming artist. And I am Wiley Todd, your host. And I'm here joined by the great Channel 13. We first got Sam Marino. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Wiley?
And then we got Saxon Bryant. How are
What's
you
up?
doing?
What's up? Doing well. Doing well. Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
So there's a lot to get into in this, and I want to talk about your guys' music because there's a lot to say about everything you guys do. So where is your guys' music background? Where was your main genres? What were the things that individually you guys were doing on your own? Did you have your own projects you guys were working on? Did you create your own music? What were you guys at before this even formed?
Well, I've been with a couple bands. I was doing kind of a Southern rock deal for a little while. Always playing bass in all these bands, but kind of a Southern rock deal. I did kind of an indie pop thing before that, just kind of throughout college. And then before that, I've kind of had the family band aspect. We'll probably get into this later, but both my brothers play instruments. They've been playing for a long time, and they're actually the kind of the back of Channel 13 as well. I've been playing with them basically my whole life, and then I actually saw Sam. He's always been doing his own thing in college and everything, but saw him perform at an open mic one time, just doing solo stuff, and I was like, we've got something to work with here. So
Heck yeah.
that was kind of some of the origin of Channel 13 in a very, very low key background kind of way. So
Yeah. For me, it wasn't. For me, I always kind of grew up playing piano. I started taking piano when I was like 4, and then I did trumpet and band. And then kind of in high school, taught myself how to play guitar and just kind of messed around with different stuff. And I actually knew Saxon in undergrad at OU in college whenever we were there. And I just remember he was like fantastic at bass. And he was always kind of doing his own thing. I was kind of always doing my own thing. I kind of did some choir stuff, and then whenever we came together, it was just like we've kind of grown together whenever it comes to songwriting and kind of like how we play. And I think that kind of translates through. This project has kind of evolved into now we're like, oh my gosh, like we feel really proud about where we are,
Yeah. So what's amazing about your guys' music is if you go through the first track to the most recent single, you see you guys evolve. Your sound evolves. And even if it's very minor, it is evolving. So I first want to talk, before we even get into more of the origins of Channel 13, I want to talk about 2018, your guys' first single, Tell Me. How did that come to be? And how did you even reach this synth sound, or as it says on your website, of this more 80s style synth music? And did you guys, when you reached this point, did you guys have any people you looked for? Because when you think of this, you think of something like The Midnight or bands like that. So how did you guys reach this sound for your first single for Tell Me?
I was going to say, it's actually funny because we talk about this a lot. Like, the creation of Tell Me is a little bit hazy, actually. Like, kind of when we were starting, we actually recorded one song in the studio. So we go to a studio in Tulsa called the Closet Studios. We work with producer mixing engineers named Kendall Osborne, fantastically talented. And Saxon had worked with him before. And we recorded with him probably a year before we even recorded Tell Me or wrote that. And kind of throughout that whole time, we were just writing. I mean, like months. Like, we spent probably 7-8 months of just sending ideas back and forth, just playing ping pong with ideas, basically. And Tell Me just kind of started with that riff, the da 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 da. And I think we just kind of like landed on that. We're like, okay, that's really cool. And then we just kind of had this general idea. It's like, okay, we wanted to do something that was a little bit unique, but familiar music that we liked. And I think the kind of 80s synth thing just kind of evolved while we were writing it. It's kind of one of those deals where whenever we're writing, we kind of listen to what the music kind of takes us to do. And I think Tell Me just kind of like found itself and we were like, holy crap, we just stumbled upon something really cool, and we just kind of kept going with it.
Right.
I don't know if Saxon kind of has anything.
Well, yeah,
else
I mean, it was definitely a shock from, I don't think anyone's ever going to hear the first song we ever recorded, because it was not good. But I'm glad that we did that, because it kind of, it made us realize this is not what we should be doing, because it was just kind of like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just not good.
Adult,
but,
contemporary.
Yeah, it was just kind of just whatever. And after that didn't work, we're like, okay, we need to figure out a specific direction for this. We can't just go like record a song with random sounds and not really have a. And it's funny you bring up the midnight, because my brother who plays guitar, Will, he had always been sending me midnight stuff. And he's like, this stuff is so cool. All the synth, they've got all their artwork that just like hammers home that 80s vibe and stuff. So like I said, it's funny you bring that up, because that was one of the first influences. But same with like, Foster the People, and then of course all the classics like Phil Collins, Toto, stuff like that. So I think it was just kind of a collection of knowing that we didn't want to do what we first recorded, and then needing to find where we kind of where our interests align or met.
So thinking about that now, and how you guys kind of evolved to this sound, the Channel 13 sound, have you guys ever thought about going a different route with this music? Have you thought about making Channel 13 in a sense a good platform to try new different genres, to try different types and styles for your music? And you can already see that within some of your stuff. If you go from the 2018 era with Tell Me and Somebody, it clearly changes from not the one kind of follows that 2018, but Take Your Time is a little bit veers off from it. And then Underwater kind of goes back to that 2018 sound. And I've noticed that you guys kind of have a pattern where you're like, okay, consistency, let's try this. Is that something you guys are wanting to do, evolve your sound and try new things to kind of really pick and really hammer down, this is the Channel 13 sound?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, and even now through some of those songs, we were still kind of trying to figure out what our sound was in a way. And there, when you think like 80s synth wave kind of like rock that we kind of like fall into, there's a broad spectrum there. And so trying out different instrumentation and saying, we listen to all different genres. So I think those influences naturally kind of seep their way into our songwriting. But the direction will always kind of, we're kind of funneling into that. But some of those originals that like you kind of mentioned, like the change here, change there, was definitely like, let's try something new, because we haven't done this. So let's try it and see, and kind of see what happens.
I kind of want to go into something interesting here. So you guys have only made one music video so far, and that was for Uneasy. And you guys really focused on that 80s style of going to a party and you guys playing on the highway bridge with the nights and the lights and everything. Is music video something you guys still want to continue to do and explore? Or do you kind of just want to focus on the music and really hone that down before even touching that type of stuff?
That was definitely, well, I got to throw this in. You're talking about the bridge. It was like, I don't know if you can tell from the video, but it was about 30 degrees outside.
It was horrible.
So maybe not anymore like winter outdoor videos, but we definitely want to do some more music videos. But I think right now the priority is just like, let's just get as many songs out as possible. But obviously you have to supplement with video content, and a music video is a great way to do it. But we'd like to be able to kind of push that as we grow our audience. I think that's the best time to really push a good looking music video, is when once you've kind of grown to a bigger level, you know what I mean? Just to really get the most out of it.
Speaking of audience, we, everyone watching this interview, we are all based in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is a market that is small, but growing. And we see more people evolving from here. Like Barty Strange is a recent Oklahoma artist that has emerged from here. Do you guys find being musicians that are honing your craft, working hard, having to travel to a distance like Tulsa to even record your stuff, do you find Oklahoma is hindering you with your growth? Or do you feel like it is a good place to start to kind of blossom in a sense of to get your sound out there and kind of evolve that way?
Definitely a good place to start. Undoubtedly. I mean, whenever you talk about the realities of recording and creating music, there's a lot that goes behind it that a lot of people don't know about. And, you know, us being completely independent as we stand, wanting to own everything, we're fronting all of that. I mean, we're the ones who pay for that. We're the ones who, if there's anything that we push, like we're the ones who do it. So, you know, being able to kind of make all that happen while still maintaining, you know, moderate economic standards of living here in Oklahoma, it's like, you know, that allows us to be able to do a lot more than I think we would, you know, in like, even if it would be in like a, you know, bigger music city like LA or like Nashville, stuff like that. Yes, there are plenty of more opportunities, but where we are right now is just like Saxon said, it's like, we're trying to just write and write and write so that can just keep on flowing and really, really peg down a sound and get better at writing, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are evolving in that sense. And when you take at everything that's being made nowadays and current music, and everyone knows that rap is the main genre, and especially being in a small community like Oklahoma where there's only certain genres that are peaking, if you even want to take that, which is like redgrass and punk rock are the biggest genres in Oklahoma, for you guys wondering. And and your guys' sound is so unique for our states and everywhere else, because like you said, when you take your guys' music, you have the classics and then you have people like the Midnight, but the only band you can point to is the Midnight and there's nothing else. So you guys have this big area to grow, because usually this type of music is only instrumental. You guys are also adding vocals into your music. So speaking of vocals and lyrics, I want to kind of do a deep dive on a couple of your tracks to kind of know the story of these happen. The first one I want to start with was personally the one I came across first. It's really special to me, and that is Underwater from 2019. So how did this track come about? How did you guys even get to those lyrics, and is there any special meaning to the lyrics, or is just you were just trying to write a song? What was your guys' process through this song?
I'm gonna let Saxon take this. We have a pretty good story here.
Sam can definitely explain like the actual lyrical meaning and all that stuff better, but I remember we were the night before recording. I mean, it had to be like 1 a.m. probably.
At least.
We're recording at 10 a.m. the next day in Tulsa. So and we still didn't, we're like, we can't figure out this hook. We thought we had it. And then, you know, at 9 o'clock, we're like, this isn't it. So we were like, there's only one thing to do. You got to go to Whataburger and figure it out. You got to have dinner at some point. So we're in the car, got to Whataburger, wasn't even thinking about the song, got back, and then just thought, we really don't do too much like falsetto stuff. So what if we hit that, you know, the main hook, Got Me Underwater. And just went from there. It was so crazy. Just the power of the patty melt, I think, is what
the power of the patty melt.
I mean, crazy. We just like hit a wall, went to Whataburger, came back, and you know the rest is history on that one.
Yeah, I mean, for our songwriting process, a lot of the time it's kind of, it's like we have a general idea, something that could be cool, like a cool thematic theme. And I think for that, whenever we were starting to write Underwater, I remember us kind of going back and forth, like this idea that someone is just so powerful in your life, or that like they make you feel so good that like, even if it's bad, even if they're doing something bad to you, like you can still find the silver lining. Like it doesn't matter. Like for example, like the main line, I'm falling underwater, no more light, can't get enough. Basically, we're saying there's like, you know, even if I'm underwater, like, and I can't breathe, like if it's you who's putting me under there, then keep me there. You know what I mean? It's kind of like one of those deals where we kind of leaned into that. And I specifically remember coming back from that Whataburger experience. That was one of the craziest things ever. But, you know, Saxon basically just came right to the piano. I'll never forget it. He just went we walked in, we were like, man, we can't find this hook. Like we had basically the verses, pre-choruses, everything. It's just like the chorus a lot of the time for us is like, that's like it's like what you want to say. That's like the message that you want to get across, that you're kind of like panning the verse and the pre-chorus, all that comes together in the chorus. And as soon as he hit that, I think underwater was just a word that like naturally came. And then the whole thing kind of came together. Like it all made sense. Like, okay, I don't even remember what the original hook was. But as soon as he said, did that, it was like, underwater, no more. It's like, okay. Then it all just kind of came together. And sonically, we kind of put all that together in the studio. But we did have a pretty solid demo too.
Yeah. We thought it was kind of cool too, going to that high. This gets like a little into the weeds, but going to that high part while you're saying underwater is cool because they're completely competing with each other. But when it's like a good hook, that kind of works. So we definitely thought that was a cool little element to put in it.
So the next thing I want to get into here before we even reach another single is what I found consistently with going through your guys' discography and every single track you guys made, and even your small EPs. Would you guys call those EPs the ones that you have released, or would you call them just like?
We've got we've got the two EPs. One was the deluxe version because we put on a single that we recorded later that kind of really rounded out that whole thing. So they're basically the same plus one song, but definitely EP projects.
So when going through all your music, and what's so great about your music is every time you click on a song by Channel 13, you're going to be hit with this great instrumental every time. And it gets you into the song. And there's literally not a flaw. And I'm not just saying this to you guys because you guys are saying yes to do this interview. I'm just saying every single time you can just listen to it and just be like, I'm fully in this. So technically you're underwater floating, and you're just listening to the music. But one thing with your guys' lyrics is, like you said, that you have a message by trying to say all these things. And what's great about your music is every single one of your lyrics is more of a blanket lyrics style, in a sense, meaning anyone can relate to these songs. And they're pretty much all of them are mostly love songs in a sense, or these great moments that you have and everything. And you can market that very easily. You can put that in shows because people can do it, which I know you guys are exploring that. But I want to ask you is, out of any of your songs personally, before me even listening to it, what is the one that has the most meaning to you guys lyrically wise and made you really put a lot of passion to it that is not more of this blanket style of lyrics?
I would say, at least for me, Alone Together definitely was inspired more by my, I guess, fiance at the time, now wife. In the Spotify Canvas video, it's actually some of our like wedding footage, which is cool. So definitely go check that out. But we one night we're just hanging out, and she was actually like, she doesn't do any songwriting or anything, but I was having her like help with some of the lines and stuff, and she was getting real into it because she loves like puzzles and stuff like that, and songwriting kind of is a puzzle. So getting to like write a couple lines with her on that one, especially because it was really inspired kind of about her for me. That was definitely like probably the most special to me.
Yeah, I remember that. Alone Together was awesome because we got to pull so much. Like it was just, it felt really, really good. Saxon is like fantastic musician, but he's also a really good songwriter too. And I think that Alone Together was really solid. For me personally, Place I'm Missing, I think is probably the one I'm most attached to. Because actually, whenever I was mentioning earlier, during that time, that like 7-8 month period between our first recording and then before we recorded Tell Me, I was actually an English teacher in Spain, in Madrid. So we were sending all those ideas remotely whenever we were finding our sound and kind of come up with ideas. And Place I'm Missing, I kind of wrote, or not kind of, I did write about Spain and my time in Madrid. It's easy to remember where I started. All that stuff is basically just like from the moment I got there until when I left. And that just held a super tender place in my heart and it's, I love Place I'm Missing.
Do you guys ever want to go down the route of, and you guys have touched this a little bit, having those slower type songs and all that, like you can really look back even to And even when I say slow, it's not really slow for you guys. It's more of lyrics wise and what you're trying to say when I mean by slow. But every time you get hit with one of your songs just kind of playing, because I have it in a mix of what I'm currently listening to all the time, you always know it's a Channel 13 song. So speaking of Channel 13, you guys' most recent single, Take Me Home, how did this come to be, and how did you guys reach this new sound? And are you guys trying to achieve anything with this new song and where you're going forward in future projects?
I want to let Saxon start on the sonically talking about the sound.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to, after the last couple, like Do You Remember and Don't You Lose Yourself, we wanted to keep going with that. One of our kind of like taglines is neon lights and highway drives. And we were kind of on that highway drives kick. So we were like, we just need to go all out on it. Let's not go halfway. And really just wanted to make it like kind of a kick-ass rock song. And so that's where you bring in the synths and the driving drums and guitars. And it kind of wrote itself once we came up with the main hook, Take Me Home, and knew that we wanted to hit that highway thing. It was just like, let's make this, I guess, quote unquote, intense and just have that driving synth, kind of like the Midnight does, but get those, those high guitars in there, get those synths in there, the driving bass. Like, we really want people to feel like that they're like actually getting in a car going home, like racing to go home. Because that was kind of the purpose of the song. So I think that helped us a lot sonically.
Yeah, I mean, I think for like the story behind Take Me Home, it's really kind of, I guess, in a way personal, but at the same time, a lot of the time when we write these, we just kind of like tell a story, right? Mm-hmm. So like Alone Together was very much like, we focused a lot on kind of just like the love between Saxon and Juliana. We inspired a lot from that. Place I'm Missing inspired a lot from Spain. But Take Me Home for us, whenever we were writing it, we just kind of imagined like, okay, everybody's been at a party before that they don't want to be at. And they just came with somebody because they kind of got dragged along, or, they love this person so much, like they want to be with them. But at the end of the day, just like, get me home. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to be with you. It doesn't matter if it's a fancy part. It doesn't matter what they have. Like, at the end of the day, being with you is the most important thing. And I think that that's what people can relate to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So with your guys' current music and your promotion that you guys are doing for this song, you guys are constantly posting TikToks of you guys making things, teasing it and everything. And sometimes you post covers, like you guys did Fleetwood Mac, Dreams, great song. And honestly,
that song,
yeah, that song
So
is
good.
incredible. And you guys performed it, and I saw it got a lot of traction that too. Are you guys like wanting to ever do something and touch in that realm? Like not covers, but like do stuff like that type of music. And do you ever see you guys going away from the synth and trying something completely new? Or do you guys have individual projects that you do beyond Channel 13 that you are establishing those different types of sounds?
I think we could definitely, it's kind of like we talked about earlier, just kind of that evolution in sound. Like our early stuff had a lot more kind of electric keyboards. Obviously, for some people listening, that may not have a big difference from synths, but synths are a little heavier. We could easily flow into the one we just recorded this weekend that hasn't been, obviously released or done anything to it yet.
Mm-hmm.
We threw a little acoustic guitar in there. It's very low key, but, just kind of dipping into some of that stuff. So I could definitely see taking kind of a Fleetwood Mac. That was actually one of the references we used in the studio, kind of dipping into that realm a little bit. We definitely want to keep it to where when we do live shows, you can get up there with, an electric guitar, an acoustic guitar, keys and bass, and just run the whole thing. So definitely could see us going down that route.
Yeah, I mean, we write a lot of our songs, almost all of them, if not all of them, are started and end up getting finished. Like vocals and piano only is normally how we do it. Piano is like my background. Saxon's a fantastic piano player, so we can just kind of bounce ideas back and forth. And I think whenever we start there, we can kind of guide our intentions where we want to go. And I think, we consider ourselves talented enough that like we can kind of mold that into the sound that we want to go. And I think at any point we could say, hey, like these are our, we want to kind of veer it a little bit more this way. But, you know, right now we kind of really pegging the highway drives, neon lights. And that's, so even if it starts on piano and vocal and it could go a little more adult contemporary, we always want it to land in that kind of 80s realm, because that's just where our intentions are right now. But we've definitely talked about like, hey, in the long run, like evolving the sound is like what makes artists really cool. You know, like for example, like John Mayer, like, you know, he's done it at an extreme level. I'm not sure, you know, we would ever dip into country and kind of like that, like folk rock, kind of like bluegrass stuff. But it's like, you know, nothing's really off the table for us. We're always open to anything.
Yeah. And I love that about your guys' style. But speaking, like, you do start with those piano and vocals. Have you guys ever thought about taking your current songs and releasing acoustic versions of it, or maybe on a EP, or just kind of separate releases as together of just your current songs and taking that acoustic route?
We definitely have. That's one of the, I think our next like kind of big goals, big projects would be, because like I said, we start, or like Sam said, we start everything on keys. So we could basically do every single song that we have on just keys and vocal, like on a grand, and get a vocal in there, and it'd be really cool. So something we want to try for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
So you guys, Saxon, you were just speaking about live performances. Oklahoma only having a couple of venues for smaller artists that are trying to grow, like the Pony Boy. I would include Towder Theater in there, but that one's a little bit risky. But then you have the big ones like Criterion and stuff like that, which I think your guys' music would fit perfectly in the Criterion venue because of that high energy. But when you guys are performing, what is the main thing when you're thinking about when you're compiling your set? Are you only doing originals? Are you thinking of doing different arrangements with your songs? What goes into the thoughts of what your guys' style of playing live is? And does it change over time? Does it change depending on the venue or the concert or whatever? What's your guys' process through live performances?
We kind of set build depending on the venue. A lot of the time, really, it kind of depends. A lot of the time, it's like really depends on the acoustics of the venue and kind of like how our arrangement can be complemented to that. We have all of our tracks from our live recordings, and so we use that to supplement whenever we play live to kind of add that bigger sound, because we haven't had as many opportunities for some of those bigger stages, but our sound calls for that. And so we want to give at least a little bit of that to whoever's listening. But, you know, it kind of changes back and forth. Saxon and I kind of ping pong ideas and kind of like how we set it up.
Right. We've done some things. We've done performances, just keys and vocal. We've done things with like running kind of drum loops with just having three pieces, you know, guitar, keys, and bass. That's always cool. But like Sam said, it's always kind of venue specific, kind of what the crowd calls for. If it's a really small venue, it's kind of hard to fire up full drums and all the synths and backing vocals and stuff. But if it's, you know, real small, it's easy to just, you know, hit keys and guitar or whatever we want to do like that. So it definitely varies.
When talking Channel 13's future, you guys are still producing, you guys have acoustics, you want to perform live more. What is your guys' goal? Are you wanting to have your music in films and all that? Or are you guys wanting to play these massive venues? What do you guys see yourselves? And like, where do you want to be in, like, let's say 2 years?
Yeah, we've actually talked about that a lot extensively as of late, kind of just what the overall goal of the project is. And I think it's kind of fluctuated over time. And honestly, the pull to writing music for both of us is kind of the biggest thing for the project. Like where that takes us is, you know, to a certain degree, our effort, but also kind of what the music allows us to do. I think us exploring new opportunities for music licensing, like having those opportunities that we've had through Artlist, is huge for us. And I think it can kind of help determine, you know, where we want to land with everything. Sax and I are both on the same train where, like, being celebrity status isn't the end goal of this
Mhm.
project, like by any means. Like, if anything, that would just be like a casualty of us creating quality art that people want to consume. And so I think at the end of the day, we're always open to opportunities and kind of where we want to go. But our main goal right now is to write and just become as good as we can on that front. And we have the potential to be able to play big stages. Like, our music can do that. We can reproduce that. We just would have to kind of be like, okay, feel comfortable enough to say we have, you know, let's say, I'm just gonna throw out a number, 20 just like slapping incredible songs that like we just feel like 100 out of 100 confident and just go and perform those. And we're, you know, balancing this act of like perfectionism as well as just like, you know, continuing to like be consistent. And with us being independent, you know, once again, writing is just the biggest thing for us, creating more and more music.
I kind of want to go backwards a little bit, back to when you guys, before Channel 13 was. Starting with you, Saxon. You said you were playing in multiple bands in different genres, from country to indie rock and all that.
Right.
Those experiences, and of course you have family that does it. Do you feel like that stuff has helped you with Channel 13 projects, and therefore, how did it help you? Not just, was it just playing in a band, or did it help you make the music? Did it just kind of flow better once you?
Definitely. I think one of the projects, I took more of a songwriting production role while also playing. The other one, I was more just kind of the bass player. But both were great experiences and taught me, you know, I think I do like having my hands on the production side, because it's really, it just makes it, I mean, don't get me wrong, being like a session bass player is awesome, because sometimes it's fun just to learn a song and play someone else that's like, you know, what they have brought to life. You get to see them in their element. So that's super cool. But it definitely taught me that I like being on the production side. I like songwriting. I like crafting this, like, you know, kind of brand and image for the songwriting and what we want to do as a band. So it's helped me in that regard a lot, for sure.
And now going to you, Sam, and your background, like you said, Saxon saw you played on that stage. Where those performances, and were you performing live to hone your craft more, or were you just kind of, because you love music so much, you wanted to perform? What was your goal even before starting Channel 13? And like you said, you went to go teach and you were standing there. What was your mindset before this? Before Channel 13 was a whole concept, what type of music were you playing? What were your goals? What were you just doing it for the love of it? What was your thought process?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, music has always been a huge part of my life and just something that like I've had a natural draw to. And I think during that time in my life, well, I was all acoustic. So I was actually on guitar more than anything. I've definitely gone back to basically exclusively piano. I do like, you know, some guitar covers and stuff, but it was very much John Mayer, Ed Sheeran, you know, like some John Legend stuff, just like regular contemporary. And I'd written a couple songs. You know, I was starting to write really whenever Saxon came and saw me play. It was at Sauced, actually, which unfortunately isn't open right now. But they used to just do open mics, and I kind of got to know the guy, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come perform?" I was like, "Sure." So I did a few of my originals, but was kind of just doing acoustic mainly. And I realized like I had a draw for like a project. Like I knew that I could make something. Like I had creativity. I just didn't know where to channel it through. And I think when, you know, Saxon and I kind of started writing, it like made more sense. It's like, okay, you know, being in a room with somebody else and coming up with brand new ideas, especially with someone as talented as Saxon, is like so refreshing and enticing. And I was like, okay, we have something here. You know, let's take, Saxon had a lot more musical background and he was like really proficient and he already had some experience. And I had the creativity and the want and the drive and some new ideas that I could bring to the table. And I think that was just a perfect mix back whenever we started.
You said you were doing this Ed Sheeran, John Mayer type of style. Do you guys personally, both of you, do you guys see Channel 13 as in a sense, a platform where you can try anything you want. So if, Sam, you want to go back and do your original stuff and going back from just acoustic guitar style to you, Saxon, going back to either Southern or indie rock, do you feel like Channel 13 is a platform, like, as you guys are saying, you're willing to go anywhere it takes you? But do you see Channel 13 more as in a sense like a channel where you can put anything on a channel, different shows that have different meanings and all that? Do you guys see that happening? Do you see you guys going back to your roots or evolving to a new different sound? And would you post it on Channel 13? Would it be on a different name or a different project?
I think we've definitely talked about doing like a side thing if we wanted to like completely pivot kind of out of left field. But like you said, Channel 13 kind of fits as we evolve. I think we'll eventually dip into some of that stuff, but I don't think, we're not out of the blue going to drop like a country song. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But, I think it'll be more of a slow evolution, and where we end up, we don't really know, but we've definitely talked about doing some side stuff because it's always fun to try different styles and stuff,
Yeah, no, it's interesting because like Saxon and I, we always send ideas back and forth. And sometimes it stinks because like we expand on an idea and we're like, wow, this is really cool. But it's like, doesn't really fit where we are at Channel 13 right now. It's like, we've actually had the same idea as you did. It's like Channel 13. It's like, oh, this could just be kind of like this music project that we just like become songwriters almost in, you know what I mean? We've definitely considered that. But I think where we are right now is like, okay, it's like we were kind of just writing to write for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once we got comfortable enough to where we can say, okay, we can continue to write and like we are continuing to evolve in that. But it's like we kind of set our sights on something and we're gonna kind of drive down this, and that's just kind of where we are right now. Side projects, possibly.
Because I feel like you guys could do something like a Christopher Cross type of style of like you could do like Never Be the Same or something.
A lot of people have come up to us after shows, particularly in that kind of demographic, that like age, and have said like, he sounds like Christopher Cross. It's funny, like I swear I'm not making that up about the Midnight, about Christopher Cross. Like you're saying all the stuff that people have said to us, and it's pretty funny.
I actually went and saw Christopher Cross 2 or 3 weeks ago. He came
I was
to
there
Tower
too.
Theater.
I was there
really?
too. Yeah,
you and I were the youngest people in there, man.
Yeah,
I'll tell
exactly.
You that much. It was awesome though, dude.
Yeah,
it's funny because people will come up to us and say, "Man, you guys sound like Steely Dan. You sound like Fleetwood Mac. And then you get the younger people saying you sound like Laney, or you sound like John Mayer, or someone like out of left field." And it's just funny how people hear us. So I think to your point, it could work going different directions because different people hear us in specific ways. So I think it could work,
Do you guys find that as a detriment? Do you find that people say you sound so much like this that do you want to veer away from that? Like when you hear something like the Midnight, you might inspire to be something like that, but you don't want to be known as a sound-alike to the Midnight.
I think ultimately that's a good question. Ultimately, when we do finish something and release it, it ends up kind of just sounding like us. I know that sounds kind of weird, but there's some flair. I think it's just the individuality of anyone really who makes music. It's even if you tried to copy someone exactly, which obviously we don't do, but you're still going to have your own little spin on it. And I think that's what we've been able to accomplish, kind of hitting those influences while still keeping our like Channel 13 sound to it,
Yeah, because it's like, we say, even in our bio, we say it's like our music is like familiar but distinct. You know what I mean? I think it's really interesting because just like you said, it's like, and maybe it was Saxon pointed out, like people say we sound like this, we sound like that. And it's like, sometimes we don't even hear that, which is interesting because we talk about how, we'll never know truly how people like hear how we sound for the first time ever. Right. So that first impression is huge and people automatically, maybe they were listening to 80s in the car all week and it's like, oh, this kind of sounds 80s. Or maybe they were listening to Justin Bieber all week. It's like, that kind of sounds like Justin Bieber because his hooks are kind of flowy and kind of poppy. So it's like, whenever we write, we definitely have some like, oh, okay, we're going to pull from this. We're going to pull from that because this sounds cool. And then it just ends up, just like Saxon said, it ends up sounding like Channel 13. And honestly, we view that as a strength because it's like we don't really know how that ends up as it does, but it does, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like your music and just listening to it in depth and going through every track is when you say someone like when you say that you sound like the Midnight, which is I think the people are saying it the wrong way. And what I mean by that is that the vocals that Tyler Lilo, I think is how you pronounce his name. His vocals are very different from yours, Sam's. Very different. They're not even comparable. And the only thing is like your guys' music is so distinct in a genre that's not that big. And I feel like the only thing when you are talking about someone, you're trying to compare it to someone, so therefore people would know what it's like. And I feel like your guys' music is different. It does have that synth, and synth's going to sound the same sometimes, but like your vocal, Sam, brings a different level to it that is completely different than anything else. And your lyrics too are also, you could throw your song in a certain type of wedding or a scene in a movie where like a coming of age movie or something like that. Yeah, you could always do that with your guys' music. The thing is I feel like that you guys have so much potential and you're constantly growing. I feel like some of your songs could get more personal in its message of staying being that blanket statement in genre. Is that something you guys are wanting to do or currently working on, is to have more distinct lyrics and less blanket stuff than you guys are currently doing now, which is working well though?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, actually. You know, I think evolving as a lyricist is kind of different for everybody. I think for us, you know, it's always been like we want to tell a story, and then I think at the end of the day, it ends up kind of sounding like something that anybody can relate to, which, you know, take it as it is, right? Some people are going to like that, and some people aren't. Some people are going to say, oh, they're just writing, you know, lyrics, whatever that comes to the top of their mind. Some people are going to say they need to get more personal. It's like, well, you know, I think some of those stories will naturally come. And I think that we are getting a little bit closer. We're leaning in a little bit more to like some of that. But, you know, I think it was always just like, frankly, when writing lyrics and kind of coming up with melody and stuff like that has always been like, you know, lyrics are extremely important to us and we're going to continue working on it, but it's like, does it sound good? Like, does it fit the mood? Like, do you get what we're trying to say? And like, I think the answer is yes, for like all of our songs. And where those stories take us, personal or impersonal, I think people can still relate to.
And again, it keeps on evolving. Like I said, you guys can see those subtle changes if you go through your music. Like I was bringing up to the first track that I listened to, Underwater, is more that summertime vibe, and like you were just doing, and less so of that night on the highway drive. You can definitely listen to it, but it's like, it's summertime. I'm going to go hang out and I'm going to bop this song in the car as loud as I can and sing along. Heck because it has that great vibe to it. And it also teeter-totters in the best way possible. It has lyrics that fit perfectly with everyone, but also feels unique to you and completely to Channel 13 as a whole. So when going through your discography, after 2019's Underwater, it started going to different terms. Like if you go from Uneasy to Paradise, those are completely two different songs compared to Underwater. And then you're talking about now the last three singles were really that Late Night on the Driveway, driving. What is the song that you guys were making and you're like, this is the point where we want to turn? Or what was like the song that made you guys like, okay, we definitely want to go down this route. We don't know how yet, but this route.
That's a really good question.
I'm gonna pull these up so I can jog my memory, because there's you can see, like you said, kind of the timeline of where, you know, things were pretty cohesive. And then I would say when we started doing, now that I'm looking at these, Uneasy, Paradise, and Stay were pretty kind of experimental. Uneasy, I guess you could say, is pretty like, again, this is all relative, but quote unquote heavy. And then Stay definitely had that like pop thing, kind of the Empire of the Sun, Khalid guitars, maybe some Tom Petty stuff in there. And then Paradise was just like totally different than really anything we had done before. I think after that, when we wrote that EP, the Nights Like This EP, it was like, let's kind of hone in on this sound. And then it just kind of kept going. We're like, should we do that? It keeps teeter-tottering between the neon lights? Do we write kind of that slow vibey
Mhm.
thing, or do we want to go highway? And right now we're kind of on a highway kick, but like you said, it kind of goes back and forth depending on. I think it's kind of unique to our mood when we're writing. If you start writing a song at 1 a.m., it's just gonna tend to be a little slower. Or if it's a sunny day and it's a Friday afternoon, you might write some highway tune. It kind of depends on the mood, the environment, stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say, actually, just like whenever you going back to underwater, kind of talking about the last question. Actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I just thought about like whenever you were talking about some of those like blanket stuff and like kind of some of those blanket lyrics, but trying to get some personal stuff in.
Yeah.
And I know that you like underwater. I just kind of thought about this. A lot of the time, we actually put in some little nuggets that like sometimes sound blanket, but people might not realize, like
Mhm.
even the opening, like we've been talking over something casual, and you got that wonder supernatural. We're basically saying like that was actually me, funny, with my current girlfriend. Her name's Annie. We were at the Jones Assembly talking over something casual, is like a drink, and it's like, but it's like, I was telling Saxon that story, and he's like, man, a word that we like sounds really good to use, like supernatural, but like somehow it's like we end up getting here and it's like it sounds good, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like we like find those lyrics, we find the stuff that we like. um and I think I remember specifically Do You Remember, which was kind of a few songs, two songs, or two our second latest release.
Yeah.
We loved writing that one so much, and we actually wrote that one last year. And I remember us, or maybe it was early this year. Was it, Saxon?
I lose track. We're always writing, so I always
Yeah,
forget
we are.
when we did stuff.
But I remember us finishing that and being like, okay, like this feels really good. This highway drive thing, like
Mhm.
it seems to make the most sense. Like we're both like, because we want to write music that we can play live and really nail it live.
Mhm.
And Do You Remember, like, feels so good to play. Like we played at Epiceo Arts Festival, and whenever we played it afterwards, like, okay, like this is money. You know what I mean? So like that's why we're like, this is where we want to go, because it feels good. It feels natural.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, because when you look at Do You Remember, for example, that chorus really hits. Like you feel when you hit that chorus, you kind of feel euphoric in a sense of feeling like you're
Mm-hmm.
just kind of floating and really hitting. And I feel like Do You Remember, like going from something like a Underwater from 2019 and then going to a Do You Remember, it feels consistent with the vibe that you're giving across between those two
Mm-hmm.
songs.
Right.
And then Take Me Home is really close to Do Remember, but it's also back to the styles of your kind of slower stuff a little bit. And like you said, performing Do You Remember and this very energetic feel is purely based off what you guys created with that because of the song and the chorus and where it hits.
Right.
So next question. We talked about how you guys came together. How did the name Channel 13 come to be? What's so specific about the number 13 or channel? How did it come to be, this name?
Sounded cool. If I'm being honest, we landed on it because it sounded cool. And we've actually kind of talked about it. It's like we feel really lucky to have found it because, it just makes a lot of sense for a lot of stuff. It sounds retro, but it's like, it just kind of like fits our music. But a little bit behind 13. So my last name's Marino, Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins number 13. That's not like the main reason, but I'm going to keep going here. It's like 13 has always been a thing. It was like always my number growing up. Saxon and I actually met in 2013. Strangely enough, we lived in the same apartment building our sophomore year of undergrad, building number 13. It's like everything just kind of made sense. It was like Channel 13. We'd never heard anybody called Channel something before.
Yeah.
And it seemed like strangely obvious, but like, it just like made sense for us. It was like, we love Channel 13.
Yeah. And we were initially talking about some influences when we decided to like start the project.
Oh yeah, of course.
Channel Orange by Frank Ocean, obviously totally different than what we do, but we were like, that was kind of a common ground. That was one of our favorite albums. We're like, Channel is just a cool sounding, like Channel Orange is like the coolest sounding album name ever. So I think it just kind of fell into our laps that way.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys really take inspiration from 80s and nostalgia like that, and you even put in your bio on your website. Are you guys movie fans or 80s movies fans that are you guys are just into that stuff and kind of came to be that way? Because kind of going to the question I have here is your guys's album art's very consistent. Having that 80s style, or however you want to say it, like those late night drives, I should say, style. Are very consistent between all of them. And then you have something like Southern California and Underwater, which are these bright white colors.
Yeah.
So what's your guys' thought process on the album art that you make? And what are you trying to convey with your consistency and style that you're trying to make Channel 13?
I think a lot of the art just kind of, as long as it fits the song specifically, it doesn't necessarily have to fit. It'll all, fit under the umbrella of Channel 13, but as long as it fits the song, I think that's the most important thing. So, Southern California, obviously, you're saying California, it's kind of a summery song. Same with Underwater. You want to get those kind of summer bright colors. And something that's a little more moody, a little more that neon light thing. You kind of want to have some dark, obviously some neon lights. It's a little on the nose, but it just kind of fits the way that we write those. And a lot of the times we'll go back and forth. I mean, I think I'm looking at these now. A lot of them just we just throw ideas back and forth until we like something that we feel like, fits the music. And we'll oftentimes have the song going while we're working on the artwork or discussing photography or whatever we want to do, just to make sure that it kind of fits the vibe of the song and the lyrics and the mood and all that.
Last question I'll end up here is, you guys always talk about you're constantly writing, you're constantly making singles. You just got done recording another thing. Is there an album coming? Is that in the works? Is that something? Is there a new EP? Is there any little nugget that you can give your guys' fans watching this about new projects coming up?
I think we would eventually love to create an album, with like a very cohesive idea. I think that that's something that we have the potential to do. Where we are kind of just in our personal lives as well as like in the project, and just kind of reading the general status of the music world right now and how people are listening to music. We think our best investment as far as like continuing to be able to write art songs and continue to be able to do that is just kind of like individual projects until we get to a point where we feel that an album could be something that people could like enjoy on a larger scale, if that makes sense. And I think Saxon probably has something to say about that.
Yeah,
too.
no, I mean, I was gonna just mirror that sentiment. Just kind of given the current music culture, there's like, I would argue probably 3 people that can just like pop in and drop an album out there with no promo. It's like Adele does that, and these huge artists that can just drop a 20 song album and it's like incredible. But while we're trying to grow a fan base, I think it makes more sense for us right now to do smaller things. That way, like we said, we keep mixing it up. That way, different fans can latch on to different things, and then hopefully in the end say, what, let's do an album and really give, once we grow the fan base, give them kind of a full project to latch onto. So it's kind of in the works without like specifically being in the works, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It's almost like one of those deals where like we want to like this might sound weird, but like we almost want to like hold off on it as long as we can. You know what I mean? Like we want to like really build that fan base and find people who like genuinely are looking for quality, authentic sound and music, so that we can, to where we feel like we can gain traction with it and cut through some of that noise that just kind of is playlist culture right now. Really, I mean, that's how people listen to music.
Thank you guys so much for this interview. You guys can all check out watching this. You guys can check out Channel 13 on all their social medias below. Also, please check out their new single, Take Me Home. Do you guys have any venues or concerts that you're performing so people can come check you out there here local? Is there anything on the
right
docket?
now? We're kind of in our writing season after it kind of winds down around Thanksgiving, Christmas. So really just getting in the studio, hammering that. But we'll definitely have some stuff in the spring and some shows coming up in 23. So be on the lookout for 100%.
Is there going to be another single this year by chance? So people know. or do you not know yet?
This year, we're undecided. We have one waiting, but we're trying to decide if we want to throw that together with some of these other recordings that we have next year, or we might just, I don't know, we might release it tomorrow. We never know.
Well, everyone, keep a lookout for it. New Channel 13 content. Is there anything you guys want to promote? Your own social medias here, so people can check you guys out.
Just please, if you guys are listening and you haven't listened to our music, please go check us out on Spotify. Follow us on there, and add any of our songs to your playlist. Like, that helps us out a ton. And we're really, really trying to grow our followers so that we can continue to get, more traction, kind of get that snowball. So that'd be awesome for us.
Okay. And you guys can find everything at Guideline at www.guidelineentertainment.com. Please check out the Guideline Oklahoma Artists playlist to support local artists and upcoming artists. Always trying to promote these. And please check out Channel 13. And we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.